They called me unmarriageable, and after 12 rejections in for years, I started to believe them. My name is Elellanena Whitmore. My legs have been useful. SS since I was 8, the result of a riding accident. That broke my spine and left me dependent on a wheelchair my father commissioned from a craftsman in Richmond. But it wasn't the wheelchair that made me unmarriageable in Virginia society. It was what the wheelchair represented: damaged goods, a burden. A woman who couldn't fulfill the most basic expectation of Southern womanhood, stodgy, NG beside her husband at social functions, bearing children without complications, managing a household on her feet. 12 men, 12 proposals. My father arranged 12 rejections that grew progressive. Ely more brutal as my reputation as the crippled. Whitmore girl spread through Virginia's planter class. But this story isn't about my disability. It's about how my father's desperate solution, Givey, NG me to an enslaved man called the Brute, became the greatest love story I would ever know. And how a society that saw me as worthless and him as property was proven catastrophically wrong. About both of us, let me take you back to the moment my father made a decision that would change 3 lives forever. Whitmore Estate sits in the Piedmont region of Virginia, west of Charlottesville, where rolling hills meet dense forests and tobacco fields stretch toward the Blue Ridge Mountains. Prime farmland, enslaved people, and a house my grandfather built, to stories of red brick, with white columns, crystal chandeliers imported from France, and enough rooms that I could go days without seeing my father if we both tried. I was born here, the only child of Colonel Richard Whitmore and his wife Catherine. My mother died after my birth from childbed fever, leaving my father with an infant daughter and no interest in remarrying. He raised me with a combination of distant affection and practical determination. I was educated beyond what most Southern girls received, taught to read Greek and Latin, to calculate figures, to discuss philosophy and politics. He'd intended to marry me well to use my education as an asset that would attract a wealthy, intelligent husband. Then came the riding accident. I was riding a horse dispirited for my skill level. Because I begged and my father had indulged me, the horse spooked at a snake, reared, and I fell. I landed on my back across a fallen log, and I heard something crack, not the log. Boo! To my spine, the doctors came from Richmond and Philadelphia. They examined, conferred, and delivered their verdict. The damage was permanent. My legs would never work properly again. I might regain some sensation, some limited movement, but I would never walk. Normally, never run, never dance. I would need a wheelchair for the rest of my life. My father commissioned the finest wheelchair available, mahogany, NY frame, leather seat, wheels that rolled smoothly on the polished floors of our house. He hired tutors to continue my education. Since I couldn't attend social functions as easily, he adapted our home. Ramps where there were steps, wider doorways, a bedroom on the ground floor, but he couldn't adapt Virginia society. By age, when other girls my age were being courted at parties and picnics, I was home with my books. By another age, when my peers were getting engaged, I was watching through windows as life happened without me. By another age, my father began his campaign to feed, and me a husband. He was in good health, but increasingly anxious about what would happen to me after his death. You need protection, he told me. You need someone to care for you tomorrow. Needs the estate to ensure you're secure. I can manage the estate. I said, you've taught me enough about business and farming, Elellanena. His voice was gentle but firm. You know that's not how society works, a woman alone especially. He gestured at my wheelchair. You need a husband. The first proposal came from Thomas Aldrich, a tobacco planter. My father invited him for dinner, presented me in the parlor, and I watched Thomas's eyes travel from my face to the wheelchair and then to the floor. Miss Whitmore is educated, my father said. She reads Greek, speaks French, Mona, J's household accounts with exceptional skill. Colonel Whitmore, Thomas interrupted. Might I speak with you privately? They left me in the parlor. I knew what was happening, could hear the lovo. Isis from the study could imagine Thomas saying what every subsequent suitor would say in variations. My father returned alone. Mr. Aldrich has declined. He feels the situation isn't suitable. B. Because I can't walk. Elellanena, you can say it. Father, because I'm crippled. Because I'm damaged. Because I'm useless. You are not useless. But his eyes said he understood the world disagreed. Th. His second proposal came later. James Morrison. Widower with 3 children. The conversation in my father's study lasted longer this time. I heard raised voices, heard my father arguing, but he result was the same. Morrison emerged and looked at me with something like pity. Miss Whitmore, you seem a lovely young woman, but my children need a mother who can manage them physically. I'm sorry. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th proposals came. Each rejection had its own flavor of cruelty. I need a wife who can stand beside me at social functions, not sit while others stand. The wedding would be embarrassing. How would she process? Down the aisle, I've heard she can't have children. What's the point of marriage? That last rumor was particularly insidious. Some doctor had speculated without examining me that my spinal injury might affect my ability to bear children. The rumor spread like wildfire through Virginia society. And suddenly, I wasn't just disabled, I was also infertile. I tried to correct it. The doctors in Philadelphia said my reproductive system is fine, that the injury doesn't affect, but reputations don't care about facts. Once laughed. Ellet unable to bear children. I might as well have been labeled play carrier. My father's attempts had become desperate. He approached men from other states, North Carolina, Maryland, Kentucky. He lowered his standards for wealth and social standing. He offered increasingly generous dowries. The answer was always no. Rejection came from a man named William Foster whom my father had met there. Oh, business connections. Foster was portly, twice widowed with a reputation for drinking. My father was offering him 1/3 of our estate's annual profits. Foster toured our property, met Whit, my father's lawyer, examined the financial arrangements. Then he met me. Can you sew? He asked. No, sir. My hands have limited dexterity. Can you cook? I've never learned. We have kitchen stuff. Can you manage servants? I can direct household operations from my chair. He turned to my father. Colonel, your daughter is charming, but I need a wife who can perform welly duties. S situation is untenable. After Foster left, I found my father in his study, staring at the wall, a glass of bourbon in his hand. Father, you can stop. I don't need 12 proposals. Elellanena, his voice was flat, defeated. I've arranged 12 proposals in for years. Every single man has declined. Some politely, some brutally, but all with the same message. You're not worth marrying. He words hit like physical blows. Then I won't marry. I'll stay here. I'll help you manage. I'm old. I could die tomorrow or live more years. But either way, I'll die eventually. And when I do, what happens to you? He finally looked at me. Our male relatives will inherit this estate. Do you think your cousin Robert will let you stay? He'll sell this place and give you some pitting. To live on in a boarding house somewhere, dependent on a charity, then leave me the estate in your will. I can't. Virginia law doesn't allow it. Women can't inherit property independently, especially not unmarried women, and especially not. He gestured at my wheelchair, unable or unwilling to finish the sentence. I felt tears burning, but refused to cry. Then what do you suck? He took a long drink. I don't know, but I have to figure something out because I will not leave you unprotected. My father called me to his study and told me about his solution. A solution so radical, so shocking, so completely outside social norms that I was certain I misheard him. I'm giving you to Josiah, he said. He'll be your husband. I stared at him. Josiah, the blacksmith. Yes, the enslaved blacksmith. Yes, father. You cannot be serious. I'm completely serious. He stood and paced the way he did when making difficult decisions. Eleanor, no white man will mar. That's the reality we face. But you need protection. You need someone strong enough to carry you, capable enough to manage physical tasks you can't do, loyal enough to care for you when I'm gone, and you think an enslaved man. Josiah is the strongest man on this estate. He's intelligent, healthy, and by all accounts, gentle despite his size. He'll protect you. He'll provide for you, and he won't abandon you because he's bound to you by law. The logic was horrifying. Father, this is not how I know it's unconventional. I know society will condemn it, but society has already condemned you, Elellanena. 12 men looked at you and decided you weren't worth marrying. So I'm done caring what society thinks. I'm arranging protection for my daughter, you. Seeing the resources available to me. You're treating me like property, giving me to a slave as if I'm furniture. I'm ensuring you survive. His voice rose, then fell. Elellanena, I've spent years trying to find you a husband through proper channels. It's failed, so now I'm trying something else. If it makes you feel better, I'll tell you this. I've observed Josiah for years. He's never been violent. He's never been cruel. He reads. Yes, I know he's not supposed to, but I've seen him. He's smart and capable and everything you need in a protector. I tried to process this. My father wanted me to marry, or whatever passed for marriage when one party was enslaved. A man I'd barely spoken to. A man society called property. A man known as the bee, rude because of his immense size. Have you asked Josiah? And you'll spend your life in boarding houses after I die, dependent on relatives who don't want you. It was the bleakest possible presentation of my future, and as much as I wanted to rage against it, to insist there had to have been another way, I couldn't argue with his logic. No white man wanted me. Society had declared me unmarriageable. My options were accept my father's radical solution or face a future of dependency and vulnerability. Can I meet him first? Actually talk to him? Of course, I'll arrange it. That night I lay in my bed and tried to imagine my future. I heard about Josiah. Everyone on the estate knew about the brute. He was enormous, over tall, with shoulders like a bull and hands that could bend iron. He worked in the blacksmith shop making horseshoes and tools and equipment. People were afraid of him. Enslaved people gave him space. White visitors commented on his size with a mixture of fascination and fear, and my father wanted me to marry him. I tried to imagine it, tried to imagine living with a man I didn't know, a man society considered property, a man who looked like he could read me in half without effort. I tried to imagine him as a husband, as a protector, as the person who would carry me through life after my father died, and I couldn't see past the fear, past the strangeness, past the absolute impossibility of this plan. But as dawn approached and sleep eluded me, one thought crystallized. If I had to choose between a future dependent on relatives who view me as a burden, or a future with a man my father trusted to protect me, maybe the radical solution was the only solution. I would meet Josiah, and we would both discover whether my father's spirit plan had any chance of working. They brought Josiah to the house, and my first thought was, dear God, he's impossibly large. I was in the parlor positioned by the window, in my wheelchair when I heard heavy footsteps in the hall. My father entered first, followed by a figure that had to duck, to fit through the doorway. Josiah was tall if he was an inch, with shoulders that barely cleared the door frames. Width, he weighed at least, all of it muscle from years of blacksmith work. His hands were enormous, scarred from forge burns, capable of bending iron bars. His face was dark, weathered with a thick beard, and eyes that darted nervously around the room, never settling on me. He wore work-low, rough cotton shirt and pants, both strained by his size. He stood with his hands clasped in front of him, head slightly bowed in the posture of an enslaved person in a white person's house. The Brute was an accurate nickname. He looked like he could tear the house apart with his bare hands. My father cleared his throat. Josiah, this is my daughter, Elellanena. Josiah's eyes flicked to me for half a second, then back to the floor. Why? Yes, sir. His voice was surprisingly soft for such a large man, deep but quiet, almost gentle. Elena, my father continued. I've explained the situation to Josiah. He understands that he'll be responsive, left for your care and protection. I found my voice, though it trembled. Josiah, do you understand what my father is proposing? Another quick glance at me, then back down. Yes, miss, I am to be your husband, to protect you, to help you, and you've agreed to this. Now he looked confused, as if the concept of his agreement mattering was foreign. The colonel said, I should, is, but do you want to? The question seemed to startle him. His eyes met mine for the first time. Dark brown, surprisingly gentle for such a fearsome face. I don't know what I want, miss. I am a slave. What I want doesn't usually matter. The honesty was brutal and fair. My father interceded. Eleanor, perhaps you and Josiah should speak privately. I'll be in my study if you need me. He left, closing the door behind him, leaving me alone with the enslaved man who supposedly would become my husband. Silence stretched between us. Josiah stood frozen, clearly uncertain what to do. I was equally uncertain. What did you say to someone you'd been given to like property? Would you like to sit? I gestured to the chair across from me. He looked at the chair, a delicate piece with curved legs and embroidered cushions, then at his massive frame. I don't think that chair would hold me, miss. The sofa, then. He sat carefully on the edge of the sofa, which creaked under his weight, but held, even sitting. He was taller than most standing men. His hands rested on his knees, and I couldn't help staring at them. Each finger was like a small club, scarred and calloused, capable of crushing stone. Are you afraid of me, miss? His voice was quiet. Should I be? No, miss. I would never hurt you. I swear that. They call you the Brute. He flinched. Yes, miss, because of my size, because I look frightening, but I'm not brutal. I've never hurt anyone, not on purpose, but you could. If you wanted to, I could. He met my eyes again, but I wouldn't, not you, not anyone who didn't deserve it. There was something in his eyes, a sadness, a resignation, a gentleness that didn't match his appearance. I made a decision. Josiah, I want to be honest with you. I don't want this any more than you probably do. I don't know you. You don't know me. My father is arranging this because he's desperate, and I'm unmarriageable, and he thinks you read the only solution. But if we're going to do this, if we're going to live together, work together, whatever this arrangement becomes, I need to know. Are you dangerous? No, miss. Are you cruel? No, miss. Are you going to hurt me? Never, miss. I promise on everything I hold sacred, I will never hurt you. The earnestness in his voice was undeniable. He believed what he was saying. Then I have another question. Can you read? The question clearly surprised him. His eyes widened, a flash of fear crossing his face. Why? Why do you ask? Because my father mentioned it. He said he'd seen you reading. Is that true? Josiah was silent for a long moment. Reading was illegal for enslaved people in Virginia. Teaching an enslaved person to read could result in punishment for both teacher and student. Admitting literacy was risky. Finally, he said quietly, Yes, miss, I can read. I taught myself when I was younger. I know it's not allowed, Ed, but I couldn't stop myself. Books are he struggled for. Words. They're doorways to places I'll never go, to thoughts I never have otherwise. What do you read? Whatever I can find. Miss. Old newspapers. Mostly. Sometimes books I borrow from other slaves who found them. I read slowly. I didn't learn properly, but I read. Have you read Shakespeare? He looked startled again. Yes, miss. There's an old copy in the library that no one ever touches. I've read it at night when everyone's asleep. Which plays? Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, The Tempest. His voice gained enthusiasm despite himself. The Tempest is my favorite. The idea of Prospero controlling the island with magic, of Ariel wanting freedom, of Caliban being treated as a monster, but maybe being more human than anyone. He stopped abruptly, as if remembering where he was. Sorry, miss, I'm talking too much. No, I was smiling, genuinely smiling for the first time in this bizarre conversation. Keep talking. Tell me about Caliban, and something extraordinary happened. Josiah, the massive enslaved man called the Brute, began discussing Shakespeare with intelligence and insight that would have impressed university professor S. Caliban is called a monster, but Shakespeare shows us he's been enslaved. His island stolen, his mother's magic dismissed as witchcraft. Prospero calls him savage, but Prospero is the one who came to the island and claimed ownership of everything, including Caliban himself. So, who's really the monster? I was fascinated. You see Caliban as sympathetic. I see Caliban as human, treated as less than human, but human nonetheless. Like, he trailed off, like enslaved people. I finished. Yes, miss, we talked about Shakespeare, about books, about philosophy, and ideas. Josiah was largely self-educated. His knowledge patchy and informal, but his mind was sharp, and his hunger for knowledge obvious, and as we talked, my fear began to dissolve. This man wasn't a brute. He was intelligent, gentle, thoughtful, trapped in a body that society looked at and saw only a monster. Finally, as the conversation wound down, I said, Josiah, if we do this, if we become whatever my father wants us to become, I want you to know something. I don't think you're a brute. I don't think you're a monster. I think you're a person who's and forced into an impossible situation, just like me. His eyes were suddenly wet. Thank you, miss. Call me Eleanor when we're alone. Call me Elellanena. I shouldn't, miss. That wouldn't be PR. Oprah, nothing about this situation is proper. If we're going to be husband and wife or whatever this arrangement is, you should use my name. He nodded slowly. Elellanena, my name in his deed. Gentle voice sounded like music. Then you should know something, too. I don't think you're unmarriageable. I think the men who rejected you are fools. Any man who can't see past a wheelchair to the person inside doesn't deserve you. It was the kindest thing anyone has said to me in years. Will you do this, Josiah? Will you agree to my father's plan? Yes, no hesitation. I'll protect you, I'll care for you, and I'll try. I'll try to be worthy of you, and I'll try to make this bearable for both of us. We sealed the agreement with a handshake, his enormous hand, swallowing mine, warm and surprisingly gentle. My father's radical solution suddenly seemed less impossible. The arrangement began formally. My father held a small ceremony, not a wedding in the legal sense, since enslaved people couldn't legally marry, and certainly not a wedding that white society would recognize between a white woman and a black man, but he gathered the household as Taff, read some Bible verses, and announced that Josiah was now responsible for Elellanenna's care and protection. He speaks with my authority regarding Elellanenna's welfare. My father told the Assam, bled enslaved people and white overseers. Treat him with the respect that position deserves. A room was prepared for Josiah, adjacent to mine, connected by a door, but separate, maintaining some pretense of propriety. He moved his few belongings from the slave quarters, some clothes, a few books he'd secretly accumulated, tools from the forge. The first weeks were awkward. We were strangers trying to navigate an impossible situation. I was used to being cared for by female servants. He was used to heavy labor in the forge. Now he was responsible for intimate tasks, helping me dress, carrying me when the wheelchair wouldn't suffice, assisting with personal needs I'd never imagined discussing with a man. But Josiah approached everything with extraordinary gentleness and respect. When he needed to carry me, he would ask permission first. When helping me dress, he would avert his eyes whenever possible. When I needed assistance with private matters, I'll maintain my dignity even when the situation was inherently undignified. I know this is uncomfortable, I told him after a particularly awkward morning. I know you didn't choose this. Neither did you. He was reorganizing my bookshelf. I'd mentioned wanting it in alphabetical order, and he'd taken it upon himself as a project. But we're making it work, are we? He looked up. Timmy, his enormous frame somehow non-threatening as he knelt beside the bookshelf. Elellanena, I've been enslaved my whole life. I've done back-breaking labor in heat that would kill most men. I've been whipped for mistakes, sold away from family, treated like an ox with a voice. He gestured around the comfortable room. Living here, caring for someone who treats me like a human being, having access to books and conversation. This is not hardship, but you're still enslaved. Yes, but I'd rather be enslaved here with you than free, but alone somewhere else, he returned. To the books. Is that wrong to say? I don't think so. I think it's honest. We'd settled into a routine. Mornings, Josiah would help me with morning preparations, then carry me to the breakfast room. After breakfast, he returned to the forge. My father still needed his blacksmith while I worked on household accounts and correspondence in the library. Afternoons, Josiah would return and we'd spend time together. Sometimes I'd watch him work in the forge, fascinated by the way he transformed iron into useful objects. Sometimes he'd read to me. His reading had improved dramatically, with access to my father's library and my tutoring. Evenings we'd talk about everything about his childhood on a different plantation, about his mother who'd been sold away when he was, about his dreams of freedom that seemed impossibly distant. And I'd talk about my mother who died when I was born, about the accident that paralyzed me, about feeling trapped in a body that didn't work, and a society that didn't want me. We were too discarded. People finding solace in each other's company. Something shifted. I'd been watching Josiah work at the forge, as had become my habit. He was macking a new set of hinges for the barn door, heating iron until it glowed orange, then hammering it into shape with precise strikes. Do you think I could try? I asked suddenly. He looked up surprised. Try what? The forge work. Hammering something. Elena, it's hot and dangerous. And I've never done anything physically demanding in my life because everyone assumes I am too fragile, but maybe with your help. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, let me set it up safely. He positioned my wheelchair close to the anvil, heating a small piece of iron until it was workable. He placed it on the barely made an impression. Again, put your shoulders into it. I swung harder, a slightly better hit. The iron bent marginally. Good. Again, I hammer. And again, my arms burned, my shoulders off. Sweat poured down my face. But I was doing physical work, actually shaping metal with my own hands. When the iron cooled, Josiah held up the slightly bent piece. Your first project. It's not much, but you made it. I was crying and laughing simultaneously. I made something with my hands, with strength. You reach stronger than you think. He set down the iron. You've always been strong. You just needed the right activity. From that day forward, I spent hours at the forge. Josiah taught me the basics. How to heat metal, how to hammer, how to shape. I wasn't strong enough for heavy work, but I could make small items. Hooks, simple tools, decorative pieces. For the first time since my accident, I felt physically capable. My legs didn't work, but my arms and hands did, and in the forge, that was enough. Brought a different revelation. We were in the library one evening. Josiah was reading Keats's poetry aloud. His reading had improved too, the point that he could handle more complex texts. His voice was perfect for poetry, deep and resonant, giving weight to every line. A thing of beauty is a joy forever, he read. Its loveliness increases. It will never pass into nothingness. Do you believe that? I asked. That beauty is permanent. I think beauty in memory is permanent. The thing itself might fade, but the memory of beauty lasts. What's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? He was quiet for a moment. You yesterday at the forge covered in soot, sweating, awing while you hammered that nail. That was beautiful. My heart skipped. Josiah, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. No, I rolled my wheelchair closer to where he sat. Say it again. You were beautiful. You are beautiful. You've always been beautiful, Eleanor. The wheelchair doesn't change that. The legs that don't work don't change that. You're intelligent and kind and brave and yes, physically beautiful. Too. The men who rejected me were blind idiots. His voice was fierce now. They saw a wheelchair and stopped looking. They didn't see you. They didn't see the woman who learned Greek just because she could, who reads philosophy for pleasure, who learned to forge iron despite having legs that don't work. They didn't see any of that because they didn't want to see it. I reached you, and took his hand, his enormous guard hand that could bend iron, but held mine like it was made of glass. Do you see me, Josiah? Yes, I see all of you. And you're the most beautiful person I've ever known. I think I'm falling in love with you. The words hung in the air between us. Dangerous words, impossible words. A white woman and an enslaved black man in Virginia, there was no space in society for what I was feeling, Eleanor. He said carefully, we can't. If anyone knew, they'd what? We're all already living together. My father already gave me to you. What's the difference if I love you? The difference is safety, your safety, my safety. If people think this arrangement is affection rather than obligation, I don't care what people think. I cupped high.'s face with my hand, had to reach up to do it. His face was so far above mine even when he was sitting. I care what I feel, and I feel love for the first time in my life. I feel like someone sees me really sees me, not the wheelchair, not the disability, not the burden. You see Elena and I see Josiah, not the slave, not the brute. The man who reads poetry and makes beautiful things from iron and treats me with more kindness than any free man ever has. If your father knew. My father arranged this. He put us together. Whatever happens is partially his responsibility. I leaned forward at Josiah. I understand if you don't feel the same. I understand this is complicated and dangerous, and maybe I'm just lonely and confused, but I needed to tell you. He was quiet for us. Long. I thought I'd ruin everything. Then I've loved you since the first real conversation we had. When you asked me about Shakespeare and actually listened to my answer, when you treated me like my thoughts mattered, I've loved you every day since. Elellanena, I just never thought I could say it. Say it now. I love you. We kissed. My first kiss with a man. Society said shouldn't exist to me in a library surrounded by books that would condemn what we were doing. It was perfect. For months, Josiah and I lived in a bubble of stolen happiness. We were careful, never showing affection in public, maintaining the facade of dutiful ward and assigned protector. But in private, we were simply two people in love. My father either didn't notice or chose not to notice. He saw that I was happier, that Josiah was attentive, that the arrangement was working. He asked no questions about the amount of time we spent alone together, the way Josiah looked at me, the way I smiled around him. We built a life together. In those months, I continued learning forge work, creating increasingly complex pieces with Josiah's guidance. He continued reading, devouring books on the library, his understanding of literature and philosophy deepening daily. We talked endlessly about everything and nothing. About dreams of a world where we could be together openly, about the impossibility of those dreams, about finding joy in the present despite the uncertain future. And yes, we became intimate. I won't detail what happens between two people in love. But I'll say this, Josiah approached physical intimacy the same way he approached everything with me, with extraordinary gentleness, with concern for my comfort, with reverence that made me feel cherished rather than used. We created our own, lost in each other, kissing with the freedom of people who thought they were alone. We didn't hear my father's footsteps, didn't hear the door opening. Elellanena, his voice was ice. We sprang apart, guilty, caught, terrified. My father stood in the doorway, his face a mixture of shock, anger, and something else I couldn't read. Father, I can explain. You're in love with him. Not a question, an accusation. Josiah immediately dropped to his knees. Sir, please. This is my fault. I should never have been quiet. Josiah, my father's voice was dangerously calm. He looked at me. Eleanor, is this true? Are you in love with this slave? I'd have lied. Could have claimed Josiah forced himself on me, that I was a VI. Tim, it would have saved me and condemned Josiah to torture and death. I can do it. Yes, I love him and he loves me. And before you threaten him, know that this was mutual. I initiated our hasty kiss. I pursued this relationship. If you're going to punish someone, punish me. My father's face went through a series of expressions. Rage, disbelief, confusion. Finally, Josiah, go to your room now. Don't leave it until I send for you. Sir, now. Josiah left, casting one anguished look back at me. The door closed, leaving me alone with my father. Do you understand what you've done? He said quietly. I've fallen in love with a good man who treats me with respect and kindness. You've fallen in love with property, with a slave. Elellanena, if this becomes known, you'll be ruined. In redemption, they'll say you're mad, defective, perverted. They already say I'm damaged and unmarriageable. What's the difference? The difference is protection. I gave you to Josiah to protect you, not for this. Then you shouldn't have put us together. You shouldn't have given me to someone intelligent and kind and gentle if you didn't want me to fall in love with him. We were both shouting now, years of frustration pouring out. I wanted you safe, not scandalous. I am safe, safer than I've ever been. Josiah would die before letting anyone hurt me. And what happens when I die? When the estate passes to your cousin, do you think Robert will let you keep an enslaved husband? He'll sell Josiah the day I'm buried and install you in some institution. Then free him, free Josiah. Let us leave. We'll go north. Well, the north isn't some promised land, Elellanena. A white woman with a black man, former slave or not, will face prejudice everywhere. You think your life is hard now. Try living as an interracial couple. I don't care. Well, I do. I'm your father, and I've spent your entire life trying to protect you, and I will not walk. You throw yourself into a situation that will destroy you. Being without Josiah will destroy me. Don't you understand? For the first time in my life, I'm happy. I'm loved. I'm valued for who I am, rather than what I can't do. And you want to take that away, because society says it's wrong. My father sank into a chair, suddenly looking every one of his years. What do you want me to do? Eleanor, let's just accept it. I want you to understand that I love him, that he loves me, and that whatever you do, that won't change. Silence stretched between us. Outside, Wind rattled the windows. So were I. In the house, Josiah was waiting to learn his fate. Finally, my father spoke. I could sell him. Send him to the deep south. Make sure you never see him again. My blood ran cold. Father, please, let me finish. He looked at me with exhausted eyes. I could sell him. That would be the proper solution. Separate you. Pretend this never happened. Find you another arrangement. Please don't. But I won. He held up a hand. I won't, because I've watched you these past months. I've seen you smile more in months with Josiah than in the previous years. I've seen you become confident, capable, happy, and I've seen how he looks at you like you're the most precious thing in the world. Hope flickered in my chest. Father, I don't understand this. I don't like it. It goes against everything I was raised to believe. But he rubbed his face. But you're right. I put you together. I created this situation. And denying that you form a genuine bond was naive. So, what are you saying? I'm saying I need time to think, to figure out a solution that doesn't end with either of you miserable or destroyed. He stood. But Elellanena, you need to understand, if this relationship continues, there's no place for it in Virginia. In the South, maybe not anywhere. Are you prepared for that reality, if it means being with Josiah? Yes. He nodded slowly. Then I'll find a way. I don't know what yet, but I'll find a way. He left me in the library, my heart pounding, hope and fear whirring inside me. Josiah was summoned back later. We told him what my father had aid, and he collapsed into a chair, overwhelmed. He's not going to sell me. He's not going to sell you. He's going to help us. He said he'd try to find a solution. Josiah put his head in his hands and cried deep, shaking sobs of relief and disbelief. I held him as best I could from my wheelchair, and we clung to the fragile hope that maybe somehow my father would make the impossible possible. My father spent months deliberating, months during which Josiah and I lived in anxious suspension, waiting for his decision. We continued our routines, forge work, reading, conversatio, but everything felt temporary, conditional on whatever solution my father conceived. He called us both to his study. I've made my decision, he said without preamble. We sat across from him, me in my wheelchair, Josiah perched on a too small chair, both of us holding hands despite the impropriety. There's no way to make this work in Virginia or anywhere. In the South, society won't accept it, and laws actively forbid it. If I keep Josiah here, even as your declared protector, suspicions will grow. Eventually, someone will investigate, and you'll both be destroyed. My heart sank. This sounded like prelude to separation. So, he continued, I'm offering you an alternative. Josiah, I am going to free you legally for Mali with documents that will stand up in any northern court. Elellanena, I'm going to give you daonas, enough to establish a new life, and I'm going to provide letters of introduction to abolitionists. T contacts in Philadelphia who can help you settle. There, I can breathe. You're freeing him. Yes, and letting us go north together. Yes, Josiah made a sound, half sob, half law. Sir, I can't. You can and you will. My father's voice was firm, but not unkind. Josiah, you've protected my daughter better than any white man would have. You've made her happy. You've given her confidence and capability I thought she'd lost forever. In return, I'm giving you your freedom and the woman you love. Father, I whispered, tears streaming. Thank you. Don't hang me yet. This won't be easy. Philadelphia has abolitionist communities that will accept you, but you'll still face prejudice. Eleanor is a white woman married to a black man. Yes, married. I'm arranging for a proper legal marriage before you leave. You'll be ostracized by many. You'll struggle financially, socially, maybe physically. Are you certain you want this? More certain than I've ever been about anything. Josiah, Josiah's voice was thick with emotion. Sir, I'll spend the rest of my life making sure Elellanena never regrets this. I'll protect her, provide for her, love her. I swear it. My father nodded. Then we proceed. The paperwork for your freedom will take time. I've already contacted a minister in Richmond who will perform the marriage ceremony. He's sympathetic to abolitionist causes and won't ask too many questions. You'll leave Virginia as husband and wife, both legally free, with money and connections to start fresh. The next was a whirlwind. My father worked with lawyers to prepare Josiah's freedom papers, documents declaring him a free man, no longer property, able to travel without passes or permission. He arranged Armaria J through the sympathetic minister who performed the ceremony in a small church in Richmond with only my father and two witnesses present. Josiah and I spoke vows in front of God and law. I became Eleanor Whitmore Freeman. I kept both names, honoring my father while embracing my new life. Josiah became Josiah Freeman, a free man married to a free woman. We left Virginia in a private car, right my father arranged. Our belongings fit in too. Trunks, clothes, books, tools from the forge, and the freedom papers Josiah carried like sacred objects. My father embraced me before we left. Where? Ike to me, he said, let me know you're safe. Let me know you're happy. I will. Father, I know I love you, too, Elellanena. Now go build a life. Be happy. Josiah shook my father's hand. Sir, I protect her. Josiah, that's all I ask. With my life, sir, we traveled north through Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware, each mile taking us further from slavery and toward freedom. Josiah kept expecting someone to stop us to demand his papers to challenge our marriage, but the papers were solid and we crossed into Pennsylvania without incident. Philadelphia was a bustling city including a large free black community. The abolitionist contacts my father provided helped us find housing in a modest apartment in a neighborhood where interracial couples, while unusual, we rent unheard of. Josiah opened a blacksmith shop with money from my father's gift. His reputation grew quickly. He was skilled, reliable, and his immense size meant he could handle worko. Thirstsmiths couldn't. Within a year, Freeman's Forge was one of the busiest in the district. I managed the business side, keeping accounts, dealing with clients, arranging contracts. My education, N.M. Why mine, which Virginia society had deemed worthless, became essential to our success. We had our first child, a boy we named Thomas after my father's middle name. He was healthy and perfect, and watching Josiah hold our son for the first time, this gentle giant cradling a tiny baby with infinite care, I knew we'd made the right choice. More children followed. William, Margaret, Jay, Amos, and Elizabeth. We raised them in freedom, taught them to be proud of both their heritages, sent them to schools that accepted black children. In my legs, Josiah designed an orthopedic device, metal braces that attached to my legs and connected to a support around my waist. With these braces and crutches, I could stand, could walk, awkwardly but genuinely, for the first time. Since my accident, I walked. You gave me so much. I told Josiah that day, standing in our home with tears streaming down my face. You gave me love and confidence and children, and now you will. It really made me walk. You always walked, Eleanor. He steadied me as I took shaky steps. I just gave you different tools. My father visited. He met his grandchildren, saw our home, our business, our life. He saw that we were happy, that his radical solution had worked beyond anyone's expectations. He died, leaving his estate to my cousin Robert, as Virginia law required, but he left me my dearest Eleanor, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I want you to know, giving you to Josiah was the smartest decision I ever made. I thought I was arranging protection. I didn't. T realized I was arranging love. You were never unmarriageable. Society was too blind to see your worth. Thank God Josiah wasn't. Live well, my daughter. Be happy, you deserve it. Love, Father, Josiah, and I lived together in Philadelphia for years. We grew old together, watching our children become adults, welcoming grandchildren, building a legacy from the impossible situation we'd been thrust at. NTO, I died. Pneumonia took me quickly. My last words to Josiah, spoken as he held my hand. Thank you for seeing me, for loving me, for making me whole. Josiah died the next day. The doctor said his heart simply stopped, but our children knew the truth. He couldn't live without me the way I couldn't have lived without him. We're buried together in Eden Cemetery, in Philadelphia under a shared headstone that reads, Elellanena and Josiah Freeman, married, died. Love that defied impossibility. Our children all lived successful lives. Thomas became a physician. Liam became a lawyer who fought for civil rights. Margaret became a teacher who educated thousands of black children. James became an engineer who designed buildings across Philadelphia. Elizabeth became a writer. Elizabeth published a book, My Mother, the Brute and the Love That Changed Everything. It told our story, the white woman's society called Unmarriageable, the enslaved man's associate. Why call it a brute, and how a desperate father's radical solution created one of the most beautiful love stories of the century. This was the story of Elellanena Whitmore and Josiah Freeman, whose marriage began when Colonel Richard Whitmore freed Josiah and arranged his daughter Elellanen's marriage to him, before helping them relocate to Philadelphia. Historical records document Josiah's freedom papers, the marriage certificate, and the establishment of Freeman's Forge in Philadelphia. The couple had children, all documented in Philadelphia birth records. Elellanen's mobility improvement through orthopedic devices is documented in personal letters preserved by the Freeman family. Both died within 1 day of each other and are buried in Eden Cemetery in Philadelphia. Their daughter, Elizabeth Freeman, published Against All Odds, the Elellanena and Josiah Freeman story, which became a significant historical document about interracial marriage and disability. Why in the century, the Freeman family of Philadelphia maintained detailed family records, including Colonel Whitmore's letters and Josiah's freedom papers, which were donated to the Historical Society of Pennsylvania. The story has been studied as an example of both disability rights history and interracial relationship history during the slavery era. The story of Eleanor and Josiah Fr. Eamon is one of the most beautiful and radical love stories from the slavery era, a tale of two people society discarded, a desperate father's unprecedented solution, and a love that proved everyone wrong about what was possible. Elellanena was deemed unmarriageable because of her disability. Men rejected her before her father made the extraordinary decision to give her to an enslaved man. Josiah was called the brute because of his size, but beneath the intimidating exterior was a gentle, intelligent man who read Shakespeare's secret and treated Elellanena with more respect than any free man ever had. Their story challenges everything. Assumptions about disability, about race, about what makes someone worthy of love. Elellanena wasn't broken because her legs didn't work. She was brilliant, capable, and strong. Josiah wasn't a brute because of his size. He was poetic, thoughtful, and extraordinarily gentle, and Colonel Whitmore's decease, shocking as it was, demonstrated a radical understanding that his daughter needed love and respect more than she needed social approval. He freed Josiah, gave them money and connections, and sent them north to build the life Virginia would never allow. They lived together for years, raised successful children, built a thriving business, and died within a day of each other because their love was so complete that neither could survive without the other.